Hello my dear friends, you're in the Milish of a Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in the world on the 3rd of March of 2026. Today we have a lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the United States of America, because finally the US authorities published a document. This past weekend, President Trump made the decision to launch Operation Epic Fury, major combat operations against the Iranian regime. The objectives are clear: destroy their missiles and raise their missile industry to the ground, annihilate their navy, ensure the regime's terrorist proxies can no longer destabilize the region or the world and attack our forces, and no longer use their bombs, which have gravely wounded and killed thousands and thousands of people, including many Americans. Ensure that Iran can never obtain a nuclear weapon. While Operation Midnight Hammer obliterated Iran's 3 major nuclear sites, the regime was committed to enriching and rebuilding their nuclear program, and they refused to make a deal despite months of extensive talks and good faith efforts by President Trump's top negotiators. So this is the most important document, and now we understand what exactly the United States of America are going to do in the Middle East region and in the Middle East direction. So as you can see, during the previous 24 hours, once again we received a lots of icons, lots of updates, because currently there are very heavy clashes between the Iranians and the coalition. And let's discuss, of course, the most important updates, and probably the most important thing is coming from the capital of Iran, from Tehran. Today, according to information we have, the building where 88 members of the Assembly of Experts were together to select the new supreme leader was bombed, but it was empty at the time of the attack. This information today was published by different sources, by different media, including pro-coalition media. As for the Iranian side, during the previous 24 hours, they mainly were concentrated on objects of fuel infrastructure. The Iranians attacked the state of Oman, and according to information we have, they attacked these oil refineries and these oil facilities. During the previous 24 hours, we received lots of videos from this area. So the logic of the Iranians is simple: if they destroy oil facilities, oil depots, warehouses, most likely the United States of America will not be able to use fuel for their aircrafts. Maybe this is the logic, who knows. Another important area that was attacked is the United Arab Emirates, and according to information we have, these facilities were damaged in the area of Port of Fujairah. So these videos were published from this region. You know that during the previous 24 hours we received lots of very interesting updates, at least regarding the United Arab Emirates. First, the president of the United Arab Emirates called the president of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin. Most likely he was trying to convince him to talk with the Iranians and to hold attacks on their infrastructure. But most likely the president of the United Arab Emirates received rejection from the Russian side, or maybe from the Iranian side, but through the Russian authorities. And according to information we have, then the United Arab Emirates and the leader of the state called the president of Ukraine, Zelensky. And according to information, Zelensky accepted this proposal, but Zelensky said that if you are able to force the Russians or to convince them to make a 30-day ceasefire, then we, the Ukrainians, will help you, the United Arab Emirates and many other countries, to bring down drones of Iran. So what is the main problem with the current situation? You know that today we start receiving updates that the main problem is of course with missiles. Qatar stockpiles of Patriot interceptor missiles will last 4 days at current rates of use, according to Bloomberg. So these countries, these states, are about to be completely empty with air defense missiles. Of course, the United States of America is trying to do everything the states are able to do with the situation. They're bringing more and more missiles in this region with the purpose to bring down the Iranian aircrafts, the Iranian missiles and drones. But it seems that the Iranians during the previous years managed to create significant number of drones, and it's very difficult to understand when these drones will end. Furthermore, the Iranians continue attacking the territory of Qatar, Bahrain. The Iranians continue attacking the territory of Kuwait, but probably the most important attack took place on the territory of the Saudi Arabia, because according to information we have, the Iranians attacked the embassy of the United States of America on the territory of Saudi Arabia. And we know that if you attack the territory of any embassy, this means that you attack the territory of this state this embassy belongs to. So basically we can say that today the Iranians directly attacked the territory of the United States of America with this attack. And you know that there is another important thing, that there is an alliance between Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. And today, according to information we have, the Pakistanis send a message to the Iranians telling them that if you continue attacking the territory of Saudi Arabia, then we will be forced to attack you basically from behind. So as you can see, everything is very complicated between these states. At the same time, we see that the Israelis began their limited military operation in the southern part of Lebanon against terrorist groups in this area. And during the previous 24 hours, according to different mappers, the Israelis entered the southern parts, and according to information we have, the Hezbollah forces evacuated from the southern part. So everything is very complicated, and it is very difficult to understand what is going to happen next. One thing is clear, that most likely the energy crisis will intensify, and most likely the main actions are going to take place through the Persian Gulf. And the only way how to stabilize the situation, the only way how to stop the Persian Gulf crisis is to, of course, create a buffer zone, most likely through the southern parts of Iran. And it seems that this is exactly the main task and the main target of the coalition, to create a buffer zone along the Persian Gulf and along the Gulf of Oman, with the purpose to cut Iran itself from the Persian Gulf and from the sea and from the possibility to trade with oil. It seems that this is exactly what everything started for. But as of now, the coalition is very far from this objective, so that is why let's wait and see what is going to be next. Now let's discuss the situation in Ukraine. During the previous 24 hours, we received a lot of changes. As spring started, the Russians intensified their offensive operation through the entire line of combat contact. And furthermore, according to the President of Ukraine, Zelensky, and according to different sources, the Russians are ready to begin to carry out another massive combined missile and drone attack through the entire territory. And according to information we have, according to Zelensky, Russia is planning a new wave of attacks on infrastructure, logistics, and the most important, water supply facilities. So this is the task of the Russians, according to information we have. And this information was confirmed by different sources. This information was confirmed by pro-Western sources. Russia plans to carry out another large-scale combined missile and drone attack on Ukraine in the coming days, likely before the end of the week. Furthermore, according to information we have, the Russians closed airspace over the Kapustin Yar training grounds, and this airspace will be closed until March 7th, which means that during this period of time the Russians can use the Oreshnik system to attack for the third time the territory of Ukraine. But this time most likely the Russians will attack some object of energy infrastructure with the purpose to destroy it completely. As we discussed the entire energy infrastructure of Ukraine during the previous videos, it seems that the Russians may attack some substations that connect the central, western, and the eastern parts of Ukraine in the common monolith energy system. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground. During the previous 24 hours, lots of changes were recorded. And first, let's talk about the Zaporozhye, the direction where the Russians seems launched their major offensive operation with the purpose to establish complete control over the city of Orekhov. The Russians are advancing in this area from the west, from the east, from the northwest, and from the northeast. The Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation during the previous 24 hours, during their latest report, confirmed that the Russians, as a result of clashes, managed to establish complete control over the settlement by the name of Veselyanka. This information was provided today by the Minister of Defense, and as of the end of the 3rd of March, we haven't received anything that can confirm this. But it seems that the Russians will publish a video with flags, but probably in coming days. And these are the changes on the ground between the dates. This is the end of the 2nd of March, and this is the end of the 3rd of March of 2026. This is a very important, let's say, progress on the ground, because now the Russians can easily move further in the eastern direction, of course, to attack the city of Orekho from behind. And as you can see, during the previous 24 hours, lots of videos were published of how Russians were attacking vehicles and infantry of the armored forces of Ukraine in this area, trying to secure this, let's say, territory before advancing further on the ground. But at the same time, we must keep in our minds that the Russians can easily begin moving further in the northwestern direction with the purpose to attack the siege of Zaporozhye from the south. So this operation is also possible, and this operation could be a very powerful media attack. But most likely first the Russians will try to secure the flanks before moving further in the direction of the siege of Zaporozhye. But the Russians right now are just in 12 kilometers from the city itself, which means that the Russians currently can use hundreds of drones with the purpose to control the city of Zaporozhye, to control its industrial zone, and to control, of course, the movements of forces in the direction of the southern part of the Zaporozhye direction. Furthermore, the Russians continue bombing the city of Orekhov, the main task of the current stage of the Zaporozhye offensive operation. During the previous 24 hours, this video was published by pro-Russian sources. Here we can see how Russians were attacking the city of Orekhov with multiple launch rocket systems. As for the eastern Zaporozhye direction, during the previous 24 hours, additional changes on the ground were recorded in the pockets to the east of the settlement of Gulyai-Polye. This information was confirmed by pro-Ukrainian sources. As you can see, they added a very big contested area, or the gray zone, between the settlements of Gulyai-Polye, Zaliznichne, and the city of Gulyai-Polska. So the Russians are advancing in this area as spring started, and the Russians are tasked to take on the complete control of the territory between the villages of Gulyai-Polsk and Verkhnya Tersa in coming days. This will allow the Russians to shorten the distance to the city of Preobrazhenka from the northeast to less than 20 kilometers, which is already nothing for this area, because the Russians will attack the Ukrainians from the positions, from the angle that these positions weren't designed to repel Russian attacks. As for the northern direction, during the previous 24 hours, we received videos that confirm that indeed the Russians, as a result of clashes, managed to establish complete control over the settlement of Rizdvyanka. In this video, we can see several episodes how Russians were raising the Russian flags in different parts of the settlement. Currently, we have no doubts that the settlement of Rizdvyanka was captured. Maybe there are still Ukrainian forces in the northwestern part of the settlement, but it seems it's just a matter of time. Now we see that the main defense layer of the armored forces of Ukraine was caught in pincers by the Russians from the north and from the south, and in coming days the Russians would try to force Ukrainians to fall back from this area. If Ukrainians lose control over these two villages, then we can say that the entire Zaporozhye defense has collapsed. At the same time, according to mainly pro-Ukrainian sources, the Ukrainians continue their infiltration further in the southern direction with the purpose to get the main defense layer of the armored force of the Russian Federation around the settlements of Uspenovka, and the Ukrainians are keeping advancing. As of now, we don't have lots of updates and videos that can confirm these attacks, but this is a very interesting situation. The Ukrainians are trying and will try most likely to recapture, if all these things are true, the Ukrainians will try to recapture the settlements of Novomykolaivka and Uspenovka to create this pocket and to encircle the Russians in the area of Gulyai-Polye and further in the northwestern direction towards Rizdvinka and Ternovata. There are very heavy clashes in this area, and the Ukrainians are just approaching the main defense layer in this region, which means that the most important and the main battle is just ahead of us. Now let's talk about the Dobropolye direction. According to different sources, according to neutral mappers, according to pro-Ukrainian sources, the Russians launched their major offensive operation as spring started in the direction of the city by the name of Dobropolye. The Russians are attacking using broad frontline attack. According to different sources, several days ago the Russians entered the settlement of Sergeyevka. It seems that the Russians are about to finish the battle for the settlement of Grishna. There are very heavy clashes for the settlement of Belitska. The Russians are keeping advancing in the area of Shevchenko, Svitla, and further in the direction of Avadyanska. And of course, the Russians are trying to outflank the settlement of Dobropolye and to cut TO 514 road as one of the most important logistic lines. At the same time, the Russians destroyed the dam in this area, and currently the territory is flooded. So, which means that Ukrainians suffer some problems with logistics, and the logistics haven't collapsed, but obviously there are some problems with this. In coming days, we'll start receiving lots of changes in this area. The Russians are launching their major offensive operation with the purpose to establish complete control over the Donbas region. And if you know, and if you remember, Zelensky during the previous 24 hours said that the Russians are tasked to take under complete control during the 2026, or to keep advancing during 2026 in the direction of the city of Zaporozhye and Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, and Zelensky stated that the Russians are keeping their eye on the Odessa Oblast, but according to Zelensky, these are the plans of 2027. Now let's move further and let's talk about the Slaviansk direction, where the Russians are about to finish the battle for the settlement of Fedorovka Druga. These are the changes on the ground between the dates. As you can see, the Russians during the previous 48 hours improved their position significantly in this area, and they got a bit closer to the last defense layer of the settlement of Nikolaevka. We're talking about the line between the villages of Kaleniki with its dense network of the fortifications, this huge forest, and the settlement of Alexandrivka. This is the last stronghold of the armored forces of Ukraine, basically the last more or less reliable stronghold on the Ukrainian side of the Seversky Donetsk-Donbass Canal, and the Russians managed to approach this territory from the northeast and from the southwest. The Russians are about to finish the battle for the settlement of Fedorovka Druga, and probably tomorrow or during the upcoming days the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation will confirm this information. We believe that this might happen within the next 5 days. As for the Liman direction, the sources are saying that currently the Ukrainians are trying to reinforce their positions between the villages of Bogorodinchne, Tityanovka, Priship, Sidorova, and Mayaki. So the Ukrainians understand that the Russians are about to finish the battle for the Russian side, let's say, of the river of Oskol and Seversky Donetsk. So which means that if Russians are able to take this territory under complete control, then of course the Russians may try to test the Ukraine's defense from the Ukrainian side of the river of Seversky Donetsk. And if Russians are able to cross the river and to take under complete control this dense network of the fortifications, as you can see, there are hundreds of trenches and strongholds. This could be a very powerful stronghold, a very powerful foothold for the Russians before moving further in the southern direction towards the city of Slaviansk from behind. So we understand that the 2026, the military campaign, the warfare of 2026 has lots of differences with the military campaign and warfare of 2022, when the Russians were trying to break through Ukraine's defense during the first stage of the conflict in Ukraine. This is going to be a completely different battle with drones and so on. So that is why the Russians don't need to take under control the city of Izium if they want to attack the city of Slaviansk. In 2022, that was the only option, but as for 2026, we see that the situation differs. As for the northern directions, during the previous 24 hours, the most important updates are coming from the most northeastern part of the Sum region. The sources reported that the Russians managed to establish complete control over the settlement of Babylivka, which is located around the settlement of by the name of Glukhov. So it seems that the Russians are keeping advancing in this area, and as of now, in coming days, most likely the Russians will be able to cut this corner of the northeastern part part of Sumy region, and from this foothold the Russians will continue offensive operation towards the city of Glukhov. But from this perspective, we believe that there are very high chances that the Russians may try to begin another offensive operation in this area, but this time to the southeast of the city of Glukhov, and then to attack the settlement from the south. So to encircle the settlement of Glukhov and to try to take this settlement in pincers. The situation in the world is very difficult, but the most important problem, of course, is the energy crisis. Everything is possible with Iran. Every kind of development is possible. The ground operation, the collapse of the state, and many other things. But the question is, what is going to happen next? Because when Iran falls, most likely a lot of new challenges will appear in the world, and then the question is, who is going to control the next version of Iran? And that's it for today. The Military with Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.